All right, there is no time to waste. We have so much content to get through in the next couple of weeks here. We got to just start banging it out. So we're first going to start with the 13600K. Now you may be asking, why not the 13900K? Well, because there's maybe only like 100 of those CPUs that came in all of Canada for some reason. I do have one on order from Newegg. It should be here tomorrow or the day after, unless Newegg screws up my shipping again. But this was actually in stock at the store, so I just went down there to grab it. And then, yeah, so we're just starting with this for now. Also, by popular demand, everyone seems to want to know what this thing can do. And, you're not going to be disappointed. Now, we have a lot of newcomers to the channel, and I feel like I should mention this now because a lot of people went back and were like, hey, Jufus, your last video was wrong. No, okay. This, for the newcomers coming to the channel, this channel focuses on maximum performance that is capable of the platform. So when you see a mainstream number, that number is completely irrelevant to this channel. You cannot compare anyone else's numbers on the internet to the numbers that you see on this channel. And it is like that by design. This channel is for hardware enthusiasts and extreme gamers, the people that want to get the most out of their platform, not people that just want to plug it into the box and hit go. We don't do that here. And you're gonna see why in a second, because you're gonna get to see how powerful this CPU can really get. This content was brought to you by the supporters of the channel. This CPU costed me 500 Canadian dollars to go pick it up so that I can review it unbiased for you guys. I appreciate the supporters so much for paying for all the hardware on this channel. I've been working for 14 hours straight, non-stop, benchmarking this CPU in one day with 2 other ones. I'm recording this at 2 a.m. right now to finish this video up for you guys. Now onto the system specs of the test benches. We used DDR4 for this CPU. Why is that? Because I figure anyone who's buying an i5 or going mid-range, they're not gonna buy a $500 2-DIMM DDR5 motherboard to max that platform out. You don't buy 4-DIMM DDR5 boards. But a mid-range buyer probably already has some good DDR4. So that's why we went with DDR4 for this CPU. Now here's the awesome thing. Do you guys remember in that last video where I said it seems like Raptor Lake has a 1 to 2 bin improvement on the memory controller? I was 100% dead on. This thing goes to 4266 megahertz DDR4 in Gear 1. And this is the i5. 4266 C17 on an i5 in Gear 1 is a gangbuster. Now, the fastest CPU that I currently have is that 12900K that we did in that other video there. It's only 1% slower than a 13900K, okay? Just bear with me for now until I get my other one. But that was at 5.3 gigahertz as well, and it was at 7600 C34 memory speed. Now here's the curveball. We also have a Ryzen 7 7700X. Now, it's not exactly a 7700X. I took my 7950X, disabled one of the CCDs. Now it's just an 8-core, basically the exact same thing, right? This one was a 7700X, 5.4 gigahertz all the cores, 6400 memory speed C30, and 2133 on the fabric clock. Basically the fastest 7700X that you're gonna find. Now, all 3 of these test systems were benchmarked with a 600 watt maxed out 4090 to remove all CPU bottlenecks. We did 1080p, we did 1440p, we did 4K, 5 single player games, 3 multiplayer games. You guys know the drill. Let's go up to the benchmarks now and I'll see you after. All right, we got to start with Tomb Raider because who does not start with Tomb Raider? It is the benchmark that sets the tone for the rest of the video. Now, the 13600K does trail the other CPUs by quite a bit. Now, the reason for this is Tomb Raider does scale with core count, and it also does scale with bandwidth. So you're seeing the DDR4 hindrance here hitting hard on that 13600K. But that being said, even though it has a 33% core deficit, because it's only a 6 core, right? And it has nearly half the bandwidth of the DDR5, it's only 15% slower. So you can already see those diminishing returns happening. The more money you spend, the less you get in return. And I want to make sure I preface this and say it's 15% slower in 1080p with an RTX 4090. You really got to keep that into perspective here. See, if you're playing the game in 4K and you got 200 FPS, yeah, you know what I mean? Civilization 6 is up next. This is a really simple benchmark. It's just the AI turn-based simulation there. The lower seconds it takes to calculate the AI moves, the faster the CPU is. Now, see, the thing is about this benchmark, even though the results are all within like 1.5% of each other, the results are repeatable, right? So this benchmark is very, very fine-tuned down to the millisecond, right? So the 12900K here, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it really only is 1% faster than the 13600K, right? All right, Horizon Zero Dawn is up next, and the AMD CPU blows the other two out of the water here. Pretty much the same result as the 7950X benchmark we did a while back, right? Now, there are a couple of games out there that are similar to this that are just completely AMD optimized, like Division 2, Death Stranding is another one, right? Just for some reason, these games are just all about those AMD CPUs. The interesting thing is, though, that the 13600K and the 12900K perform identically to each other at all the resolutions. So the DDR4 or the DDR5 doesn't seem to make a difference, and the core count here also doesn't seem to make a difference. So this happens all the time with this game. That's why I kind of leave this game in there just to see results like this, because it's really cool to see from like a scientific point of view, like what's going on here, right? Cyberpunk is up next. This is just another one of those scientific ones that not really a practical use case here. This was with a maxed out 4090, ultra ray tracing, and no DLSS, right? This is all native. So the 12900K in 1080p is the best performer here by quite a good margin. And then at 1440p and 4K, all three CPUs are completely GPU bottlenecked, obviously. So, you know what the cool thing is, though? Even with a 4090 in 1080p, we still cannot ray trace natively in Cyberpunk. Think about that for a second. How many more generations away are we from native ray tracing? All right, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is up next, and the interesting thing about this game is, the last time I benchmarked it with that 3090 Ti, I thought that we were going to see a larger difference once I actually got the 4090, but lo and behold, nope, not really. I can't tell if this is the most optimized game on the planet, or maybe just the most GPU-bound game on the planet, because all three of these CPUs perform exactly the same, even in 1080p. It's wild. But technically, if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, the 12900K is about 4% faster in this title than the 13600K. Also, again, in 1080p. If you're playing at higher resolutions, which I assume you are if you're using a 4090, then don't worry about it. Riftbreaker is up next, and this one probably shows the biggest delta between the actual three CPUs here, which is interesting because at the high end, they all kind of perform the same, right? But actually, this game does tend to scale down much more than other games do with those mid-range and lower-end CPUs. So this game in particular is probably the best one to use to segregate the performance differences between the actual CPU classes. The 12900K has a 13% lead over the 13600K in this title, so very similar to Tomb Raider as well. Escape from Tarkov is up next, and you may be wondering why this one only has 1080p. Well, in order to benchmark this game, you have to actually turn on VSync, right? And the fastest monitor I have is a 1080p 360 hertz monitor, obviously. So I have to actually put these test benches on that monitor and then enable VSync in order for it to allow itself to go above 140 FPS. So this is literally the only way to benchmark this game properly, is if you have a 360 hertz monitor. So if I used 1440p, I would only have 240 hertz, right? But one day we'll get those 360 hertz 1440ps, but it is not this day. You can basically ignore the averages here for this game because it really just depends on the day-night cycle and how many trees and shrubberies are in your point of view and all that stuff. The 1% lows are what we really should be focusing on in this game. Wide range of gameplay, right? And the 12900K is about 10% faster here than the 13600K on average in this game. But it's really a nothing burger here because the 13600K is still getting 192 in the lows. So it's not like you can't compete in Tarkov with an i5. All right, Warzone is last, and I did do 1080p and 1440p, but the FPS numbers on all three were exactly the same because we're literally only using, you can see at the top there, we're only using 60% of the GPU, the 4090, in 1080p, and then it goes up to around 85% usage in 1440p. So even in 1440p, we're still not even GPU bound in this game. So in the middle there, you can see the classic AMD behavior where the averages are really, really high and then the lows are low. The 7950X does do a lot better in this game than the 7700X just because this game does scale with more cores, right? But you can see that the 13600K actually has better lows than the 7700K, and that is also attributed to that DDR4 low latency. You can actually almost see that the 13600K almost has the same lows as the 12900K in DDR5. Why? Because this game does prefer that DDR4. So the advantage actually goes to the cheaper platform here. So what you're seeing here in the 1440p numbers is the variance between run to run, obviously, but you can actually see that the 1% lows on that 13600K is the same as that 12900K in this game. This game cares more about latency than it does core count, obviously, because, well, that 16-core AMD still loses to the 6-core Raptor Lake, right? Isn't that insane? So if we take all the numbers, put them together, take the average of all the games that we had up there, the 13600K with maxed out DDR4, mind you, DDR4, is only 8% slower than a maxed out 12900K with DDR5. And then this pretty much trades blows with a 7700X depending on the title, if it's AMD optimized or Intel optimized, really, but they're pretty much the same performance-wise, right? But if you're building new right now and you already have some good DDR4, you're a mid-range gamer, and you pick this thing up, you have performance that's only 8% away from the top for half the money. This is what, half the price of a 7950X, maybe 1 to 2% slower, with DDR4, mind you. This is it. Now, for those of you that were like, hey, Jufus, but the last video you said the top end is only 1% faster. Yeah, that's kind of how it works, right? When the top end of products kind of start stagnating against each other, every generation after, the top doesn't really change, but the bottom kind of moves up to match and go up with it, right? So that's why you kind of see the mid-range products always get much larger gains than the top-end ones, right? So next generation, when the 14th gen ones come out, you're gonna see that top end getting squished even tighter and tighter and tighter, and then you're gonna see the i5s and the R5s starting to catch up to that top end, and then eventually those will get sandwiched in with the top end as well, and all you're gonna see is 1% differences between all of them, and eventually we're just gonna hit a point where the law of the cheapest model is gonna apply to CPUs too. In the future, when I have more time, I will revisit this with a budget DDR5 motherboard just to kind of see where it lands there too. But I'm saying right now, as of this moment, DDR4 on this thing is the GOAT. Anyway, guys, with that out of the way, make sure to hit that subscribe button because we got 13700K, 13900K content coming up. Streaming content coming up. I gotta show you guys how to tune 4090s properly. There's just content for weeks. You're not going to want to miss any of it. Hit that subscribe button because we are shooting for 20,000 subscribers before Christmas. And again, you can buy whatever the hell you want. I don't care. If you're happy, I'm happy. And with that being said, if you like the content, hit that subscribe button. Do all the YouTube SEO stuff. Like, share, subscribe. Comment down below what you thought of the i5 13600K. And I will see you guys very, very soon in the next one. Talk to you later.